Hello and welcome to the Low-Code Campfire. This is the episode for April 18, 2025, episode number 191. I am Dale Warner, head of support for Plantinap. This is an event that we do every Friday, or most Fridays anyway. It's a gathering of our community together with our staff, and we get together and work on techniques and challenges and things that you've got going on with the Plantinap platform. We encourage you to bring something to show or bring ideas and suggestions in advance. We record all these and put them on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/plantanap. And so all of the previous hours are out there for your viewing or searching pleasure. Today we're going to run pretty much our standard agenda. We say hello at first because we're a friendly group, and then after a while, we pick from these other around the campfire items. We always do first call, anything submitted in advance. We do have something submitted in advance by Matt, and Matt's here, so we're going to talk about that. And then other things, there are contributions to the Campfire website, again starring Matt. We have our community and our feature requests and dark corners and ghost stories. Going to skip Afterglow today. My schedule doesn't allow it. But that's where we turn off the recording and talk for a little while longer. So if you're listening to this in replay, just plan that normally we get together for a few more minutes after the recording is turned off after the hour. We do encourage everyone to engage. These just an open meeting format, pretty flexible. I used to have a slide that says "Be nice," but that's really the thing. We're a polite group. You can submit questions and topics in advance, either by using this QR code or by sending an email to support@plantinap.com, and that's what Matt did this week. So, hello, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We are glad you're here.
Good
Um,
morning.
Hey, Dennis. Um, as I mentioned, Matt has one, and I really do want to take it up, but we have plenty of time if somebody came with something you wanted to talk with as a first call item.
I have a first call item today.
Great.
I have a SQL query outputting data that I need to put to a text file. And I run the query into a token, actually a list. But the data coming out of the query has text that's formatted like a token. They're not tokens, it just looks like a token. And when I go to save that to a text file, the save to file is trying to interpret that data as a token and then says, "Oh, we can't find the token."
Mm-hmm. The tokens are unresolvable, so then they're bad.
Right. But it's
Mm-hmm.
not really intended to be a token. It just looks like one because it's in the text of the file we're trying to create. Is there a way to turn off the resolution of looking, trying to resolve to that token and that save to file action?
First of all, I find it always helpful to look at the action in question, so I'm going to bring that up. But I think as we get there, I think my answer is I'm not aware of any way to turn that off. So um, I would probably advise um, solving that um, from the SQL side, doing a replacement, or even a JavaScript side, doing a replacement to get rid of those.
And
But let's see.
and the text file that this is creating is labeling. It's a file that's sent to a label printer, and the label printer is looking for a couple keywords in nice square brackets to initialize and finalize a label definition. So
So you need them in the output.
now
Um,
things I thought of was creating a token called initialize that return the text initialize in brackets. I don't know if that would work or if it would send it off into a loop.
so this is save file is the action.
let me look here at exactly which one. I'm creating CSV from list. I actually tried the save file, and that's where I first ran into the error.
So your CSV contains, excuse me, your list contains tokens, and as we output them, we're evaluating what's there and evaluating the tokens. So um, and you need the tokens for um, in the file for the label printer. It watches for tokens. I'm sorry, it watches for brackets to do.
Right.
Yep.
And the way this used to run was a batch file on a server that no longer exists, because the label printer was connected to the server. And now I'm trying to put this into a function to download the file that a user could copy it to the label printer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought about doing it as a Razor script as a solution to create the file, because it would be sort of like doing it on a command line. But I don't know if that might add extra complexity to.
Yep. Um, so I think, I mean, the basic issue is that we have these tokens that get evaluated, and that's a feature. When you use the token, when you use the brackets, and it looks like a token, it's um, invoking it. It's doing it when you don't intend for it to. What I have done in similar cases is to use a different delimiter and then change it after the fact. So, for example, if your SQL, instead of returning brackets, returned curly braces, and you output that to a CS, you use the same list as CSV mechanism. So now you have a file that has uh, the wrong delimiter, but they're not expanded incorrectly. And then if you process that file after the fact to switch curly braces or whatever delimiter you choose to brackets, then it's ready for consumption in the next step. Um, that could be done with a PowerShell script, for example, or a small JavaScript. And um, I, if you liked that idea, I could certainly help you find. Uh, I could ask ChatGPT to generate such a script on your behalf.
I can write the script, so I just wasn't sure if there might have been a different
Approach.
action some place where I was just, you know,
Yes.
missing
It,
the opportunity because there's so many hidden features. Uh,
yeah. Um, from a feature standpoint, um, it you could imagine that create CSV from list could have a checkbox that says expand tokens and listing with a default check, right? So you could uncheck that, and now it wouldn't expand them. But we don't have that in anything. And so, um, yeah, I'm not aware if a field accepts tokens, the token engine is going to get invoked and
Now, do you know? I know in some places there's a option to recursively call tokens. If if I
right.
if, if I call, I could change my SQL output, to or take that token that looks like a token and have it return the text of a token. But I don't know if that. Do you know if that would try to recurse itself and solve on the way out, or um, if
Yeah,
they
I don't know if this would be recursive or not. You'd have
okay,
to
I'll
test.
give I'll give it a try.
Yep.
Okay.
Um, the thinking about that one, the create update tokens. That this is the one that has the number of recursions on it. Um, and so sometimes, depending on where you're trying to use it, you can um, have something that has token um, structure to it and say zero. So this would be a way that you could get um, this bracket a bracket into whatever field you're talking about, um, because this would be with zero recursions, token replacement wouldn't happen, and you would get what you are asking after. If you do this, now you're going to get the value of a into field, and so this could be used kind of for half the solution. You could force handling of it without token evaluation, but then you're still stuck trying to get it out to a file. And what if you use the save file method, for example, I'm pretty sure token replacement would happen at that point. So you're kind of get stuck
Okay.
because of how you're trying to use it next.
I will I will go try some experimenting and see what I come back with next week.
All right. I Yeah. If it were me, I like using a non-delimiter, a
And
non-bracket delimiter, and then changing it at the last step. But that's just me.
yeah, and actually in this file there is some where I've done that for file replacement in the old solution. Um, the problem we're having right now is trying to get this. This is going to go to a user that they're going to download the file and send it to a printer, and I can't guarantee that they have the skills or a utility to once they have the file on their machine to do a search and replace without
Mhm.
and mess up the format of the file.
So you just want to give them a final product.
Right.
Yep, I get it. Almost have to, yes. So got a couple of solutions to test. Sorry, it's not just a straightforward, yep, do this.
Okay. Thank you.
Um, yep, so I see from chat from Don that he's at Hotel California. Um, Hope you're enjoying yourself, Don. All right. Did anybody else have a first call before we jump into what Matt brought up? Matt, are you ready to tackle this?
Yes, I am.
All right. Um, so uh, this is what Matt was talking about, and it's basically a permissions grid, some on-off flags for some uh, options within the system. Did you I don't know if you saw my email about the possibility of using. I have a nice solution for this for if it's okay to do it in a grid. If it needs to be in a form, then I don't have a nice solution.
Oh, I was hoping to do a grid actually, but kind of initially discounted that. So sure, grid is great.
Okay. Um, the um, I'm sure I've done this someplace before, but let's the the trick that I've used before is that you can put buttons that change the status of something, and then you have a button. I remember where I have this. Let me yeah, rather than invent it, let me go find it. It'll take me just a second. But the concept is putting a uh, having two buttons for the option, one that um, is styled one way, and when you click it, it changes the value from on to off,
Mhm.
and the other
Yep.
one styled differently. When you change it, when you click it, it changes it from off to on. So you would essentially have two buttons for each option that you want to present. So long as there's a finite number of options, it's not that hard to do. I mean,
Yeah.
a short list, and then you just you show the button. If the value is on, you only present the off button, and likewise, if the value is off, you only present the on button. So when you click them, it appears that it's changed. It's like acting like a toggle switch, but it's actually doing the work of changing the value at the same at the and um, changing uh, the visual as well. So, would you like me to try and find that, or is that a
No,
close?
that sounds right up my alley.
Okay. Um, so is that enough of an explanation, or would you like to? Again, I'll find it if you want to look at it.
Oh yeah, no, I would love to see it in action.
Okay. Um, I know right where to find it. This is all right. So this is one of our outbound emailers, and it has this ability to opt in or opt out of all the different things. I'm showing both buttons. You can choose to opt in or opt out. So, for example, if I hit opt out of the holiday messages, notice that as I did that, this
Mhm.
changed from, yeah, and if I opt back in, it changes. So, um, kind of gives that toggle um, look. Also, I've got this one to opt out of everything and opt into everything. Um, if I look at the code behind that, on the items button, I have an opt in select an opt in and an opt in selected button. The that's these two, and then an opt out and an opt out selected button. And so let's just focus on the opt in side of it. Um, if the option is, I have two different um, conditions. If the selected option is not equal to 1, and if the selected option is equal to 1. So I'm only displaying the button, this particular button, the opt-in button, if the selected option is true.
Okay.
So visually, we're going to see one or the other of these buttons, and then these buttons are styled differently. So one is if it's not selected, it's outline primary. If it is selected, it's primary. So
Okay.
outline primary gives this impact. So um, and primary gives full colored in, outline primary gives it not. So it gives us this nice look of activity as you're hovering it, and when you click it, you're clicking the button, but now we're actually seeing a different button. The
Yep. Yeah,
value
you're
was changed in
refreshing.
the
Yep.
refresh app. Yes. So within that, let's pick one of these to look at. Within the, if you if the option is not selected and you decide to click the opt-in button,
Yep.
you get we're updating the subscription, and there's some other stuff that goes on, but at the end we're doing a data source refresh, and that's the thing that after changing the state of the data behind the listing, now the that causes the button to go to you're seeing the other button. So long as I chose to do this in to provide an opt-in and an opt-out button, and have them being in opposite states. But you could do this with a single button and just change it from um, you're only you're at this opt-in button, once it's here, you clicking it doesn't do anything, right? So um, but you could change it so that it could be done in a one button solution. It'd be a little bit less uh, code to maintain, and it would just change color when you clicked it, would be the visual impact.
Could you go back to your stack again?
Yep. Which one would you like to see?
That one. Yeah. Oh,
Oh, sorry.
that's okay. Action stack on the buttons.
So if somebody chooses to opt in, they're in the opt out state, and they chooses to opt in. You want me
So
to?
you're partially updating. Okay. You're updating this subscription table. What is this query doing there? The next one.
Yep. So um, this one, because of my opt-in, opt-out scenario, if we have this ability for all, right? So you can
Right.
do one or the other. So as soon as you opt out of one, we're turning off this one here.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, and that's
And
what that SQL does?
exactly.
Okay.
So if they opt into anything, the opt out is canceled. So that's what that one does. And then we have this other thing that if it happens to be they're on the all category, then
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
changing them all to whichever way they go. So we're handling this in that one.
Mm.
So depending on what you're doing, if you need that select all, select none kind of functionality, that's a little bit different.
Yeah, I
Then you
do. And I could, yes, I could use that as well.
okay.
Um, so a single button solution would then be, um, right now you've got two columns, one on and off, right? A single button solution would be obviously just one of those buttons, and it would change the display state from outline to solid, for example.
Right. So just for clarity, I have a visually we see two buttons, and in actuality there are four.
Right.
And we're showing one of these and one of these. In a two, if you wanted to go where you were visually showing only one button, then you would actually have a two button solution. One that
Mhm.
shows if it's true, one that shows if it's false, and then put all the you know they would essentially be identical with just reverse logic,
Yep.
and reverse style, or however you
Mhm.
want to CSS, however you want. Could have different. You could give them different icons, for example, to show one was one way and one's the other. But the idea is it's a magic trick. You got two buttons there, and you're only going to show one of them. They don't see the other
Mhm.
button.
Okay.
Um, or how about I just scroll through this all stack just in case you want to
Yeah.
look through it. So I'm doing load user because we need to run as a user. This, this particular this opt-in, opt-out of emails, we don't want them to have to log in to be able to do it. And yet we have to have the rights to partially update the subscription. So we're just always acting as if they were the administrative user. We partially update the subscription based on the ID of the row. Um, and we're setting the selected option to 1 in this case. The opposite button would set it to 0. We're handling if they opt out of one thing, we're
Right.
changing um, I think this selected option 3 is the designated all category.
Correct. Yeah.
So we're setting it to um, a different, or I'm sorry, this is selected option. I'm sorry, this would be setting it to whatever values 3, but this is going to be the designated all category. This is the option that they get when they do that. Um, we're handling the all conditions. So um, if the category is all, then we're doing everything for that,
Yep.
changing it all to true.
Yep.
The other one would be all to false, and then data source refresh. So a little sleight of hand, but I think it gives a nice impact.
That seems like it's much more straightforward than I was envisioning. Um, yeah, so in my case, I'd need to probably do a one button solution
Because you have
because,
several fields.
yeah, I've got,
But
go ahead. Yeah,
yeah, because you've got what, 5 or 6 fields that you're trying to turn on or off.
correct.
Yep. Now this works okay for a finite number of fields, right? If you have 5 uh, options here that you can turn on and off, then it would be pretty clear which are on and which are off, and things like that. If you if you had X number of things that you're trying to turn on or off, it'd be harder to use this solution because you have to have one button for each state. So if you don't know how many states you're going to have or how many different options you're setting, you wouldn't be able to.
Well, in my case, um, you've got two finite elements. You've got um, the number of categories, right? And then one state per category that you're representing with two buttons. Mine is different in that I have an unknown number of categories, and I have, in my case, 10 options, opt in, opt out options across,
Right.
you know, but
So
logically,
potentially you're going to have 20 buttons, but it's
yep,
once you get it once you get the pattern right for one, it'll be pretty easy to duplicate.
yep, yep. Okay.
So it's doable. It's not. It's still low code. Probably a little more grunt work than you wish it would be, but I think you
No,
can do
no,
it.
I think this is less grunt work than I was anticipating, so I'm good.
All right. All right. Thanks for submitting that in advance.
Well, thank you. Much appreciated.
I had this topic, and I think it would be a good one, but I'm not really prepared to show it, so I'm going to skip on by this. The we'll hit it at another time, either in a cafe or a campfire. But the idea is that it occurs to me that I see the activation screen of Plant an App pretty frequently because of my role, but you guys don't see it very often. It's an unusual thing. So being able to show that and show what you the steps and kind of give you confidence about what's going to happen next when you use different options. I want to do that. I had a conversation yesterday that made me realize that uh, what is clear to me because of my role is not necessarily clear to you. So I'll get into this, but I'm not really in a spot where I can show it at the moment. And we're making it better. We realize that it's not as clear as it could be. So providing better instructions and notes about that. I don't mean to rush on. Is there anybody that wants to comment on that one or just wait for me to get around to it? Okay. For anyone, I think probably all you guys have dealt with this who's here, but I just mention it that we have this issue that popped up a couple of weeks ago, and we still see users that are encountering this, that because of the update to Chrome, you can't get to the configuration page, or um, another issue that's popped up because of updates to the browsers where listing filters can disappear. There's hot fixes released for both of those things, so getting them installed this is at 126, I think 303 is where we fix these things. So if you're experiencing any of those problems, you need to do that. Since the configuration page might not load, you might need to use another browser like uh, Firefox or Safari to get that to happen. Uh, and yet Don said that worked for him, so good deal. Um, Beta release is ongoing. If anybody has any questions or feedback about beta. Um, 2 days ago, was it 2 days? Yes, we did OpenID Connect with Microsoft AD. I don't know if any of you made that one, but I think this is a pretty cool concept. The idea that you're clicking the button login with Microsoft, and um, not only do you get logged in, but we take the groups out of the payload that comes from Microsoft and map them to roles onto the system so that as you log in, you get assigned to the right roles uh, and also removed from prior roles. So the net effect is that whoever's in charge of your AD and can add you or take you out of groups can uh, manage however many systems, disparate systems that um, you're logging into with OpenID Connect. Beyond all that, we just showed doing the Microsoft setup. Stop me if you have questions or feedback. Um, Last week, there was this sticky headers, and Matt managed to get the post done into our contributions. And so this is if you have sticky top applied, excuse me, if you don't have it applied, then your grid might go on and on and on and then have a pager at the bottom, and so you get this kind of impact. If you have sticky top applied, then as you're scrolling, it's the exact same list, but the headers stay in view, and you can uh, use much less screen real estate, even though you're still doing a group of 45. And so you give you maybe a better user experience. So thanks for documenting that and how to set it up. And very useful. Thumbs up from Matt. There was another one that related to the Low-Code Cafe that I did. Um, this solution for OpenID Connect it has been made pretty generic. You can the entity that I used in that Low-Code Cafe, and I'll put the link to the cafe itself here, but the entity that I used and the workflow that I used could be used to just directly, once you've got OpenID Connect set up and working, set up an entity, install my workflow, and the entity lets you put in, here's my Microsoft group ID, here's the role I want it to get it to map to, and so long as you call the workflow as a result of them logging in, it um, it's going to do the work of removing them from roles they don't have anymore and adding them to roles that they now have, or yeah, roles that they should now have. So, yep, those are the assets that go along with WinID4. So at least they're there for you to look at.
Dale, I have a question on that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that in the on the AD side, on the administration side, the system admin for the Microsoft network, let's say, um, it will respect the roles and groups that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
Is that mandatory, or in other words, if I just simply want to get them in the system and ignore their roles, whatever they might have within the Microsoft world, I would imagine I can do that. Is that correct?
Yes. So, uh, um, when you use login with Microsoft, it comes with a payload, and there's a lot of groups in it, or it can groups can be part of the payload that you get from that. You don't have to do anything with them. You can ignore them, or you can use. There might be 10 groups, and you could pay attention to one if you want to. It's
Okay.
entirely up to you.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking and kind of concerned about.
So, is your scenario you just want to ignore them altogether, or you want to use
Potentially,
one?
yes.
Yeah. Okay. And let me see. So if you're going to ignore them altogether, you don't have to do, you don't have to do any of what I'm showing. I added an entity that has group IDs and mapping them to roles. And so you wouldn't have to do any of this because you just don't call my workflow. If you want to potentially map one role, you could use this. And so if they have 10 different groups, you could pick the one that you want to map and assign them to a role. And the the thing that brings this into play is within the general settings of the provider. There's this what you do when they are authorized, and just call my workflow with the user ID and the claims that has all the groups into it. That's probably more than you wanted to know.
No, that's pretty much exactly what I wanted to know. Thank you.
All right, sure. Yeah, I think I've come to the end of my list. Well, I say that. I'm still open if okay, so I want to make sure we got to map, but if there's we did that. So if there's any other topics that you've been holding back, now's a good time. Otherwise, I'll wander off and see what's on community portal. It's always interesting when I see questions about anything time zone or international related. It, it it always gives me a shudder because there is never a simple answer when you're running a site that's operating in multiple time zones. There are there are answers, but they're never usually not simple. Turns out, I think on this one, let's double check. I think this turned out to be they really only want to deal with one time zone, so um, so it turned out to not be an issue. And when there's multiple, it can be. So Don asks, when you do a response action in an API, that's the last step, right? But I'd like to do a few more things and not keep the requester waiting. Any thoughts on how? Yes, that's a great question. So let's look at the related stuff. So the scenario is you're defining an API. So the API endpoint gets called by somebody else. I mean, whoever the caller is, they can call your API and you're going to do some work for them, maybe return an answer, and that's the response action. My internet is a little bit of a challenge in my remote location here, so sometimes things fail or slow down. Okay, so we define the endpoint, define the kind of method it is, it has input parameters, and then finally we get to actions, and so you can add actions, all the things that you want it to do with the input parameters. But at the after it's completed that, you're going to have different kinds of responses that you can do. And so, for example, a normal one type of response would be just a raw response. So at anything that you want to do, you can whatever you include in the content gets sent back, and maybe you send back a 200 OK kind of a HTTP code. But once you do this, that's the last thing. And if you uh, if you were to add another action on the end of it, I don't think it would run. Um, and see, and you get this warning when that happens that they'll never execute. The only way they would execute is if this was conditional. If you had a condition here and said, well, only in this condition do I want to do this thing, and then it's going to stop. So you output, perhaps you use this to report back an error that you've detected, and then nothing else in your stack runs. So the question then was about you don't want to keep the requester waiting. You're going to do some things that take some time. They've triggered the work, but you want to do that. So there's a couple of things that come to mind that you can do. One would be that you could set change a flag in data that would trigger an automation to run. So you could set up an automation that would handle steps 2 and 3. So let's take a real simple case. You're maybe as a result of your actions, you're changing the status of a record somewhere, and you want additional processing to happen on that record. If you go to automation and set a trigger that's based on a database change to the status, now automation is going to take over and do the additional steps, and the user isn't waiting for that because there's no direct connection. The in so you would have I don't want this one to be around here. So it would be something like partially update book and or whatever your entity was, and you changed the is listed property. If you have an automation watching for changes to is listed, then uh, that's going to happen in a separate process. So that's one way. And then another way is that there is an action execute actions asynchronously. If you have a license that supports execute actions asynchronously, you could put this above your raw response. This, whatever you put in here, is going to happen in another process. So this, in the context of running this API action stack, is going to happen in very short order. Maybe it's a quarter of a second or a tenth of a second. It's going to kick off this other process. So you could add actions to do send emails or intense computations, whatever you're going to do, and or run some other workflows. You're never going to get you can't get a response based on that and do anything with it, but it'll run in another process. So there's two different ways. Going back to the automation potential solution, maybe you're not changing something in the database, something that could be that you can trigger off of. I mean, you could always establish a table that's just purely for the purpose of let's fire off an automation. But this, if you don't have data, don't want to implement the data trigger, then you could just have a time trigger that wakes up and does extra work. Yep. Don says it's already added an entity, so I can add a new status field and just use automation to monitor that. So good. I think I'm assuming we found the answer to your question. Perfect. We did, so we won't dig into that one anymore. While we're on APIs and looked at all that, is there any, did we happen to raise any questions or curiosities? Okay. So back to looking at what's in community. This is a great question that came in. I just didn't have a great answer for it. That we have our electronic signature add-on that goes with forms, and so somebody can do a signature, but they were trying to make sure that they had a real answer. And the thing is, we don't have any way of intelligently looking at a signature and knowing what's been drawn. Let's see if I can find something to just kind of show off our signature mechanism. So this is nicely quite involved, but when this gets submitted, I mean, you grab it, but it and you get a JPEG that has that content or whatever the image file is that has it in it, but we don't have any interpretation of what that is. It's just an image. And as Don says, a signature can be a squiggly line, so no. But yeah, if you want to not allow a squiggly line as a signature, or it's, I mean, the only suggestion that I had is getting some kind of an evaluation, and there seems to be some. What was my answer here? That um, Google Cloud Vision looked like it could be interesting. That Google Cloud Vision was returning labels like signature or handwriting or scribble. And so if you handed that off to that API, it might be useful. Got a question from Don. Can you show the image file and ask, is this your signature, and submit on yes? Yep. Once you have the signature, you can do things with it. Um, I mean, it is an image file, so you can display it maybe in the next form or uh, in a pop-up or something like that, and then make them say yes, no. So that would be an interesting way to do it. Um, and then I think too, if you have a signature, if you're really trying to validate a signature, I think if you had a known signature on file and you had them sign again, you could probably get an AI comparison or find some service that would do a comparison and say, yep, that's a 98% match or a 0% match, and make some decisions based on that. Okay. So we had the action grid sticky columns. Actually, let's dig into this one because we ought to post the answer here. And the answer partly is here, but let's go ahead and find the campfire answer. My life is all about hyperlinking. Anybody hate that it does that? Trumbowig does that. All right. I think we've gotten to ones that have reasonably been answered already. All right. What else? First of all, I want one of you to just say, yes, I've been listening to you because I've been having internet trouble. So let me know at least that it's been recording.
I didn't hear a word you said.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. All right. I think you guys are rebelling against me ever since I said that we're not going to have Afterglow. It's like, okay, I'm not even going to play. All right. Okay, so now this is last call. We'll entertain anything else you want to talk about, and then I'm going to pull the plug. All right. I will wish you guys all a great Good Friday, and we'll be back and do it again 1 week from today. And I hope Patrick will be back too. He's always good for a few topics.
Happy
Thank you very
Easter,
much.
everyone.
Yes, absolutely. Happy Easter. All right. Have a great one, guys.
Happy
Bye-bye.
Easter, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.